Well, joining me now, Leslie Marshall, syndicated radio talk show host of The Leslie Marshall Show and Fox News contributor, and Chris Plante, syndicated radio talk show host of The Chris Plante Show. All right, Chris, what'd you think about Senator Paul and whether or not he'd feel guilty if this lapses and something happens?
Well, look, the timeline on uncovering a plot versus the window in which the program might be suspended, I think it might be tough to hang it on him, although I know that people certainly would. And he pointed out that all these years in, the FBI, the intelligence community, cannot point to a single plot that has been thwarted because of this metadata program, which honestly is less scary than might meet the eye if you look more deeply into it. It's not that frightening a program, but he's standing up, I think, for the Fourth Amendment. And people are concerned about our privacy rights being chipped away at, so he might be in a good place.
Yeah, but what I've heard from intelligence experts, Leslie, is that it's not necessarily direct plots that they thwart through this program. It's actually threads of information that they are able to piece together that may help them in some way crack certain cases.
Yes, but they can also obtain that information with a quick warrant, which they would get in the case of an alleged terrorist attack. And they can go to Verizon or AT&T, and they can have a huge net cast within that subpoena to obtain these records, which we must be reminded, I do agree with Chris on this, it may not be, it's scarier than it sounds in a sense, but it doesn't have names. It doesn't have the conversation. Right now, what it is for a lot of people who even agree with the rest of the Patriot Act, but not 215,
right,
is specifically the lack of a warrant to obtain the information, and that's just too much of a breach for many Americans'
all right.
privacy.
I want you to listen to Chris Christie, who is going to make a decision about whether or not he's going to jump into the presidential ring in about a month. He announced that today. Here's his take on the Patriot Act.
And the fact is, all the different people who are expressing opinions on this in the Senate right now, none of them have used the Patriot Act. None of them have prosecuted terrorists. I have. And so they talk about it from a speculative perspective. I talk about it from a real life perspective. And that's why I feel like I have to speak out on this, because nobody else that's in this national conversation right now has the practical experience that I've had.
All right. So Chris and Leslie, who do you agree with on this? Do you agree with Rand Paul or Chris Christie? Chris Plante.
Well, I'm not sure they're necessarily in direct conflict with one another. 215 separated out from the rest of the Patriot Act creates kind of a different discussion. And I'm in favor of reviewing the Patriot Act from start to finish every so often, because I think it was a big government reaction to a big government failure in the aftermath of September 11th.
All right. Let me get Leslie in here. Who do you agree with?
Oh, boy. Chris, we agree on this one. I don't agree with the entire Patriot Act being thrown out. I do agree with it being reviewed, and I do think that they need to sever the relationship between 215 and the rest of it. So I don't agree 100% with either Governor Christie or Senator Paul.
Okay. So
yeah, me too.
Let's move on to this, because it's very interesting about the two of your names. What is in a name? Well, your name could provide a glimpse into your party affiliation. This after a new analysis of data from the Social Security Administration and the Federal Election Commission, which uncovered a link between certain first names and political leanings. For example, men or women named Leslie tend to lean Democrat, while those named Chris are generally Republicans. And we aptly have you on the right side and the left side of the screen today. All right, Leslie, since I cheated you time last week, you get to start on this one. So, Leslie, I guess, did your parents know you were going to be a Democrat?
Look, I was born in Massachusetts, and I always joke around that after they spank your bottom, they make you aware of the Kennedys and your responsibility to become a Democrat. No, I just joke. You know what? I was reading, believe it or not, Gretchen, I think you'll appreciate this as a mom, when I was choosing names, or my husband and I were, for our children. And it was interesting how certain names come from different parts of the country and the history with names domestically and then internationally. So because a lot of names are geographic, and I think Leslie does go north of that Mason-Dixon line, that would definitely speak to, I think, the reality of it more than my parents being clairvoyant about my political party.
Well, what about you, Chris?
I want to know why the Social Security Administration commissioned this study and what they're going to do with the information. I think people with my name might be looking for IRS notices coming in over the transom sometime soon. I'm a little concerned about that.
Okay.
But honestly, look, I was raised in a Democrat household, 5 brothers in addition to myself. All of us have Republican names, or according to this analysis, and not all of us are Democrats, let's say.
It's interesting because Gretchen's nowhere on the spectrum. Just like growing up, it was never on the coffee mug in the store. It was never on that little license plate in the airport. You know, woe is me, or maybe I skirt this one. Maybe I don't want to be on any list. Leslie and Chris, take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Gretchen.